You're listening to the Oneofus.net podcast network.
They come from the bowels of hell, guided by a master plan for complete domination of the earth.
It arouses such emotion that the management has been forced to state positively no refund.
Once again, big thanks to Mr. Robert Summers for creating our brand new theme there, which is kind of awesome.
Anything for you guys. Anything to procrastinate from actually writing.
And this is part 2 of our vampire episode. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and do that, where we talk about Nosferatu, Dracula, Only Lovers Left Alive, 30 Days of Night, Byzantium, Let the Right One In, and, of course, the best one on the whole list, Life Force. As well as our look at the Belko Experiment, which is not vampires, but it's a recent movie. But let's get right into it this week, starting back off at the second choices we all had for our underrated or lesser-seen vampire films with Rob, who picked Daybreakers. Man, I'm so glad you picked this, because I've been waiting for an opportunity to, just an excuse to rewatch this.
Right.
When we got to see this movie in the theater, we got to do an interview with the Spirig brothers afterwards, and it was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done.
I thought there was only one set of twin directors.
No, there's quite a few.
There's not enough.
There's a lot. They're identical twins, and they were just so much fun. They were right off the bat, me, Corey, and them were bang, 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 and we're talking about all sorts of other fun stuff. And Daybreakers is, I think, more than anything, just a fun fucking movie.
Yeah. I have to say, I picked this movie because of probably every movie on this list, this is the movie I would reach for first. If I was at home and all these movies were on Blu-ray in front of me, this is the one I would probably watch first. It's a straight-ahead, kind of more genre-y, sort of action-y thrill. It's just everything in one. And it's neat that it's a vampire movie. They're immensely talented filmmakers. I guess some people are mixed, but their first movie, Undead...
I love Undead.
I think is a blast. It's a super cool, low-budget... Evil Dead meets Alien movie. It's a really fun movie. I didn't care for their latest one.
Really, Predestination? I really liked it, but I saw what
it has
people...
its fans.
Yeah.
But there's neat stuff going on. I am confused why these guys are not bigger directors.
I think they're the guys they're picked to
They're
restart
rebooting
the
Saw.
Yeah.
Saw Legacy.
Yeah, they're doing Jigsaw.
But these guys, I almost feel
much better, they're doing the story of the Winchester House.
Ooh,
the
Winchester Mystery
about
House.
The Winchester
that
Mystery
should be
House.
interesting.
I'm just surprised Marvel hasn't tapped these guys to do a superhero movie.
Agreed.
They just seem like someone who is going to bump next level, and all their movies are going to be $100 million movies from now on. At least this movie, especially design wise and everything. I guess I'm getting
Give us a plot.
Yeah, tell the plot.
Man, I hope I can summarize it. But basically, this is set up in a world where where vampires have taken over, and it's set in the future, I guess. So
2019, actually.
Yeah, it's a futuristic film where vampires have taken over, and now everyone's a vampire. And there's a few remaining humans who are being farmed for food, but they've realized that they need a blood substitute because they're running out of humans to gnaw on. So Ethan Hawke is a conflicted person who kind of wants to go back to being human, and is trying to come up with this blood substitute and encounters the resistance, the remaining human resistance. I guess, is that?
Yeah, that would be what it is.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe.
William Dafoe, who is awesome. This is a very cool movie. It looks cool. That was one of the things I remember just seeing it, and shows what great directors these guys are. It has a very Dark City, Blade Runner kind of look, which is cool because it's also
future noir.
And it's but it's also got a little bit of that retro noir thing. Everybody's wearing hats and suits and
smoke a lot of cigarettes.
Yeah. So
no lung cancer when you're a vampire.
Yeah, that's true. You're not going anywhere.
First thing I would do when I got turned is start smoking again.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. It's just another benefit to being a vampire.
Except for all those people who are like, I just don't like the smell. And they'd be fucking everyone smokes now.
If you're a former smoker, you would see that as a big plus.
That's the first thing I thought of, because Ethan Hawke's chain smokes the whole entire movie, and I was just like, I would totally do that too.
Patience, be a vampire, you'll live forever. You're like, you'll be super strong. All right, fine. You get to smoke all day.
Yeah!
I'm in.
And not age or, have it like ruin your face or your teeth.
No venereal
Right?
disease.
Wow.
Well, I'm just saying.
Is that a problem
disease,
for you?
Disease wouldn't hurt you, so you'd be like, man, these vampires would be fucking in the streets. like Bill Hicks said.
Chris has got stories, folks.
Like Bill Hicks said.
Chris has got
Except for only lovers left alive, where
Exactly.
they're really concerned with contaminated blood from STDs and such.
Yeah, I don't.
Bill Hicks said if they cure AIDS, it's gonna be fucking in the streets. Like, what's your name, baby? How's it going?
Chris's vampire future, everybody.
Yeah.
Chris's version of Daybreakers was a lot more fun.
It's kind of half Daybreakers, half what is that? What's that?
porn is the word you're searching for.
I'm trying to think of the Caligula. Yeah.
Porn is what you're looking for.
I fail to see the problem, Russell.
Neither do I. I want Chris's vampire future.
I would watch that movie. I'd watch it.
Alone. I mean, I'd watch that movie alone, but
Until the May and Tell.
Yeah, right. I think it's funny because Ethan Hawke is kind of like the hipster vegan in this film.
He is. He's the sort of emo, sad sack, hipster vegan. Yeah, definitely.
the reality
It's like, I
bites
don't-
Ethan Hawke, if you
Yeah,
will.
I don't eat humans, but you destroy them on a daily basis.
Which they mentioned in like kind of okay, sure, we can drink pig's blood, like in a half-ass, and then I kind of went, wait a minute, well then why don't you just raise pigs?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's
whatever.
not as satisfying.
No, but throughout it, they say like the vampire plague's plaguing everything, not just humans. There's actually a really great quote in there. It goes, vampiric wildlife making its way into sunlight is the #1 cause for forest fires. And I'm like, that's fucking brilliant.
Holy shit, I missed that. That's amazing.
It's on the TV in the background when it shows like a forest burning and it's like some squirrel fucking vampire
got vampire.
walked out and exploded.
Oh, that's that. Now I love this movie even more.
It's really high concept. and it
This
was
is like
fun.
a fun, cool, I think almost mainstream movie in a lot of ways.
It
So.
was like if the Wachowskis made a vampire movie.
That's
It's
a really
so
good way to put it.
well shot in like that sci-fi
Yeah.
blue and orange toned way. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Very
totally.
noir.
I totally agree, and I honestly a great cast. Really all in too. Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, Sam Neill. So I mean, there's not much I could recommend. If you're looking for, like when people ask you like, what movie should I watch this weekend? This is one I feel like you can recommend to anybody, even if they're not a horror fan. It's because it's a cool pitchable concept, and they do a really good job with it. Like they shoot the shit out of it. They keep it fun. It's got some really terrific sequences in it. There's a scene where there's a caravan that's like attacked. And honestly, the last scene, I don't want to give away too much, but if you haven't seen it, but the last scene, they there's a reverse on spreading the vampirism, and I remember the movie had set it up so well that when it started to happen, it really blew me away. Like I was
Agreed.
like, oh wow, they totally set this up. Everything makes sense. It's purely visual. That kind of writing and storytelling is rare. I just think it's just a really smart movie made by smart directors.
That final sequence you're talking about, it's funny.
It's
I was having a
amazing.
discussion with someone today who was like, I just thought it was so silly. When I saw it, the whole audience laughed. I'm like, you were kind of supposed to laugh because
Yeah.
it's so incredibly ironic
Like these
Right.
how it ends, but it's
berserkers.
also incredibly disturbing at the
Right.
same time.
That was one of my
you know,
favorite
It
scenes.
plays
of
with
the whole
everything
film.
you've watched before. What you think about vampires is all of a sudden turned on its head.
Yeah.
and it's a stunning lesson.
I thought it would have been comedic if it would have happened one time, but the fact that it happens twice really makes it more heavy.
Yeah.
Like when you see what happens to these soldiers the first time, you go, that's kind of... Then it goes, oh, fuck, they're being
Yeah.
eaten, and it really
It's
works out
great.
well.
It's
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool.
There's so many neat new things they add to their vampire lore, like you said.
Yeah,
the
it's
idea
great.
of the animals are going out and causing forest fires.
the idea that,
Great.
that you spike your coffee with blood.
Yeah, and like
5%, right at
Yeah.
20%
And I
today.
love that, when they start starving, they turn into bat-like Nosferatus.
And that was something I wanted to say was
Berserker
the
type
very the very beginning of the movie has an amazing scene, and it's very simple. That moment I was totally in the movie. In fact, I would say the first 20-30 minutes of this movie were just, I was so
You're talking
into
about
the
there's
movie.
an intruder in the house.
Yeah, I don't want to say
Yeah.
anymore, but it was just
Subtitle.
the very The first half of the movie I love. The second half I think it's a little action movie for me, but I really, really love the world of this movie. And
cars.
No, I wanted to give a shout out to the cars because those cars were fucking badass.
Yeah.
We had a 66 Mustang, a 57 Chevy Bel Air, and a 78 Pontiac Trans Am.
Well, not just that, but the idea that the way you would drive cars like that, the windows would fog up so you could drive in daylight.
Oh,
with
that's
a
right.
camera.
Which is Willem Dafoe's character. He was one of the very first people to make cars vampire friendly, I guess you could say. And so those 3 cars I just named were Willem Dafoe's personal cars in the film. And those things, I'm a muscle car lover. Those things were badass.
I mean, shout out to just that moment when they get a flat tire and it just... You're like, oh shit, you're
You can't
fucked, and then
change
it
your
just
tires,
automatically
daytime.
reinflates. I was like, dude, why isn't that a thing?
My favorite moment, William Dafoe's, "This is an ugly fucking house." He has my favorite line in the movie.
I remember seeing an interview with Ethan Hawke around the time this came out, and it was probably right before Ethan Hawke had started to carve out that second phase of his career where he was in these genre movies, which shout out to Ethan Hawke. I love it. I love that phase of your career. I think it's great that he's doing that. He said that his agent had sent him this script and said, you should really read this. I think it's great. And he said, it's a fucking vampire movie. I don't want to read it. And he said, you really should read it. And he said, nah. And he read it and he said, wow, this movie is great. And he wanted to be a part of it. So that's the kind of script that it is. It's a really original, fun, interesting take on vampires. I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I think we all...
on that, he said, I don't want to be in a genre movie unless it's about something. And he's like, oh, this is actually about something. And surely this wears its allegory on its sleeve.
Yeah.
But it's never so... It's like, it's not that it's heavy-handed about it or lectury. I mean, it just is what it is.
It's always a
It's
fun
just a depletion
action
of resources.
genre thriller. It's never about the
I
message.
mean, you see why he was in The Purge as well, which is a horror movie, but clearly has a bigger thing to say.
Or Sinister, which I liked.
And I will rarely say this, but I feel that this concept was wasted on a movie. I feel this is a 10-season-long show.
Would have made a great show.
They created a world, and in like an hour and 28 minutes, they have to end this world. It's like, fuck that, man.
I do feel that the
Make
movie's
this into a
almost...
show.
I totally agree. I do. Whenever I watch it, I think, I can't believe this is already over.
Make it a
Not
show
that
because
Shudder
they
and
go
Netflix
through
are
stuff.
listening to us, but maybe you should make it a show.
Yeah.
100%. The concept is a TV show.
Great
That's a good
title,
idea.
too.
Yeah.
Love the title.
Yeah, so much coolness here.
I just want to say I would have never rewatched this movie had it not been a part of our homework, and so thank you for that, Rob.
Oh, you're
because
welcome.
I'm happy
But
to.
that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
this is a movie, I think, even if you're not a horror fan, you can watch. And I have to say, of all the movies that we watch, I think we have some amazing masterpieces. This would be the first movie I'd watch because I just know I'm going to have fun.
Yeah,
And it's
I was
cool.
so pleased.
It's everything I want from
Moves
a movie.
quick. It's like very visually
And it's
exciting.
slick, man.
It has
It's a slick looking
and
movie.
like you said, it has a whole world. It's
It has everything you want
Yeah.
from like a movie like this.
I literally paused several shots just to go like, man, how'd they like that? That is fucking slick,
yeah,
man.
it's gorgeous.
It's really underrated. I'm surprised it's not bigger in the geek canon
Agreed.
of movies
Oh,
like this.
completely agree. Well, let's move on to our next one, which Patience is not
oh
going
my
to thank
fucking
Russell
god,
for,
Russ.
which is Nadja.
Here it is, guys.
it's
Cue the
Nadja.
music because it's about to be on.
It's if Hal Hartley and David Lynch had a baby and they decided to make a movie using a Fisher Price camera, this would be that movie.
Who would not want to see that?
Best
Best picture in the world.
I hate you so much.
No.
All right.
I know I love you, but
Oh, no,
god
it's-
damn it.
Russell,
Let's get it on.
Tell us about this movie.
Wow, can I summarize
Phil's
Nadja?
also
little-
not a big fan.
as much as-
clearly.
What kind of?
But Russ and I
Don't you
like.
say that.
But we
Don't
deeply
say
love
that.
it, and I would say I was surprised you put us on the list because I knew that would be the reaction.
Which is fine with me. Like,
Yeah.
fuck you guys.
This is no life source.
I'm just gonna start putting ringers on the list too now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to
Let's
incite
get it on.
controversy.
Russ deeply.
No, I love this movie, and I think we'd all of us had talked about our lists and stuff, and I'd have to say this is still my favorite vampire movie. Nadja is a black and white 90s art film about Dracula's twin progeny.
There it is, the twin bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's true.
Yeah, we did.
And what happens to them in a mid or early '90s New York? I don't know that I can say much more than that. There's a
Well, Dracula's passed away, like he's been killed, and the the two twins and then the people that are hunting them. Sort of, it follows them.
Yeah, thanks. That sounds good.
In the sense that there's a story.
Yeah, I love this movie. I understand other people's problems with it. It's a very it has, like I said, it has a very 90s New York sort of art house feel to it. I want to say briefly, if you're not familiar with the work of Hal Hartley, who was
made a lot of great movies.
Yeah, who's made a lot of really great movies like Trust and Amateur. He has a particular deadpan style that his movies have a very specific look and feel. And this movie, I don't even want to say it's an homage to them. Michael Almereyda, who I think is a very interesting, exciting filmmaker, basically takes Hal Hartley's style and his actors, Martin Donovan in particular, who stars in most of he's basically De Niro to Hal Hartley's Scorsese, is in this movie. But his ideas about the vampire myth, and particularly Dracula, and what he thinks about Dracula, and there's some really funny, dry lines in this movie. Peter Fonda plays Van Helsing as this aging hippie vampire hunter.
As Peter Fonda.
And his as Peter Fonda, and his scenes with Martin Donovan in particular, who I am a huge fan of, because of his Hal Hartley work, are why I love this movie. And I think it is a beautiful looking movie. I think it has amazing ideas. Where he's going with it, I know. And I just want to be all right. Listen, I just want to be clear about this, Chris. You were not.
He has so many ideas.
I don't hate this movie.
You don't hate the movie.
I don't even dislike it, but I don't know if I'd ever go watch it again.
Right.
It's like,
But you weren't going to rewatch Daybreakers again either.
Me,
so
I was. I was looking for an excuse to rewatch it. This is one I'm like, okay, at first, I'm like, why am I watching this? This is fucking boring.
Because it's on our list for a podcast.
And then, as it went along, I was kind of like, oh, this is a comedy.
It is. And I love that about it.
But it's so fucking deadpan that you'd never guess it was a comedy if you'd already kind of phased out.
But I find it strange because Chris and I discussed this movie earlier, and Chris is familiar with Hal Hartley's work. It's weird to me that you didn't pick up on that.
No, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, that part was immediately evident. Come on. When I saw Martin Donovan in a Marvel film, I was like, did Hal Hartley direct this? It's Martin Donovan. He's like 9 times out of 10, it's a Hal Hartley movie.
Okay, all right.
And you definitely get the little bits of the David Lynchiness. He was a producer on this.
And he makes a very fun cameo in the movie.
He does. He has a fun cameo. And there's definitely Lynchy sort of like, what just happened representative scenes, especially when actual horror becomes involved into it. I mean, ultimately, this feels like a movie that is almost disdainful of vampire films in a snarky, ironic way.
And I will say, there is a little bit of the 90s snarky hipster irony to the film. But to me, it transcends more of that. But I do see that is a knock.
Jared Harris as the young vampire brother, I was like, wait a minute, that guy looks familiar. Holy shit, is that Jared Harris?
It's fucking Jared Harris, man.
And what's crazy, you're like, who was that horrible actor? No, it's a really good actor doing something purposely interesting and bad.
All right, here we go. And patience.
Because Jared Harris is an amazing actor.
I want to preface this part of my review. I'm not super against art house films. I mean, I generally do not like them, but
she showed up at the protest outside Mulholland Drive. No more good movies. No more good movies.
I mean, but this was the biggest piece of pretentious hipster bullshit I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, it is, and I like that about it. But go ahead, yeah.
I hated this movie so much, and the satire was not lost on me. There was actually one scene that I very much liked, and it's when oh god, I can't even remember their names. That's how much I disliked this film. I just didn't care about any of them. But I think it was Nadja was about to say something important, and then her Renfield starts playing the harp. And that part of the movie, that was the only thing I was like, okay, that's fucking hilarious. Because that was stupid. But otherwise, my headphones disconnected for about 3 minutes at one point of the film, and I didn't even realize that wasn't a part of the film. I was just like, oh, okay, so yeah, they turned off the sound. Of course they did. That's how stupid this movie is.
Oh, you missed the line that made it all make sense.
Oh, God, right? I guess so. But, I mean, I get it. I get why filmmakers specifically would like this movie. I get how pretentious art house hipster people would love this movie.
She's carefully avoiding looking at the
Guilty. No, guilty.
I'm not looking at the Summers Brothers.
I understand.
No, that's a fair.
But this was a total waste of my time.
Okay. I get that. That's why I was like, Russ, I don't think this is for everybody.
hated this film so much.
I'm curious, Phil. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I liked it in a weird masochistic way.
Oh wow.
To me, like, I found it fun. I found it making fun of itself. I found it making fun of convention and what the genre is. The dialogue is ridiculously stupid and funny and intelligent all at the same time.
Yeah.
And making fun of itself. Like, you've got people going like, I was born by the Black Sea under the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains. And then it goes, who's this? Oh, it's Renfield. He lives me. He's my slave. And it's like, what? Where did that come from?
There's a lot of incest in this film as well.
And then there's a lot of like to me, it's a really forced story too, where it's like you just happen to run into a guy whose dad is Van Helsing.
It's not a film that it replicates reality.
There is no reality. There's not a lot of continuity. People are chasing people when it gets, and then. What was funny is I remember texting you going like, I don't know if I got a bad quality version of the movie, but it goes super pixely. Yeah. And you go, well, he used the pixel vision. I go, man, the only movie I've ever liked that used that was Hamlet. And I go, same director.
Same director.
And I go, holy shit, I actually really, this director can fucking direct.
Yeah.
Because Hamlet with Ethan Hawke is a well-made movie.
One of the most valuable cameras you can buy, the Fisher-Price manufactured pixel vision camera that was only made for like a year. I think they said they only made like 400 of them or something.
They made more than that.
But now it goes for tens of thousands of dollars.
Well,
on eBay
we have one. Well, go ahead.
What I was going with this is, as soon as you said it was the pixel vision camera, in my mind I go, well, Hamlet had one. It was badass, and the whole to be or not to be scene. Mm-hmm. And I go, that director, that's one of my favorite movies back in the days. And I go, well, I love it. And I go, same director. I go, let me give us a legitimate shot. This guy knows what the fuck he's doing. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to appreciate the humor.
Okay.
So I think it was once I understood that this guy wasn't just some guy making a fucking movie, and I go, oh. Okay, it allowed me to ease into the movie a little more, knowing that the guy actually has chops that can make a big movie.
Right.
And not just like, is he just making these good actors be shitty? Yeah. And then I got the comedy out in it. It really helped me understand it, knowing the guy had real talent.
Soundtrack is Portishead, for fuck's sake.
Well, they have a song on it, 2 songs on it.
And they have Space Hog at the end.
What's wrong with
I don't disagree. It is very much of its time, as far as mid-90s goes.
No, I think that's a good way to put it. This is...
Nothing is wrong with Portishead, for the record.
No, absolutely not.
Or My Bloody Valentine, which also has a good song in this.
Got to slip that in there.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I mean, you said movie of its time. It's like My Bloody Valentine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the soundtrack is cool too. I mean, this is not... This is a very unusual film, and my brother and I really respond to it. I knew that it's not a movie that most people would. Like I said, like I still was perplexed when Russ suggested, like, they're not gonna like this movie. Like they're not gonna dig it. It's not gonna be their thing. Like we like it. I think filmmakers have a thing where we like kind of offbeat movies that other people kind of don't. We get something out of them. And it maybe because we're filmmakers, we appreciate maybe the craft or something that they're up to that other people would be like, yeah, but it doesn't work for me. It's not a good story, and I get that. Like, it's a yes or a no. It doesn't work. For us, though, I think it really does. I remember at the very beginning, there's a scene where Peter Fonda is talking to Martin Donovan, who's gotten him out of jail. He's his uncle, and he's like his ne'er-do-well uncle, and he got him out of jail because he's killed somebody, and you realize it's Dracula. But it's sort of hinted at, and he has this amazing summation of what Dracula was like, where he says, I don't know, man, he was kind of like Elvis at the end. Kind of drugged out, surrounded by zombies. And my brother and I just thought that was just like this amazing idea of what Dracula was. And he tells this story about how Dracula fell in love with a girl, and it didn't, he had a baby, and then she died in childbirth, and after that was back to basics. And it's told in this dreamy, fades, and it's all in black and white. And I just remember I was so struck by it. It was so moving, and and I think because this is a vampire podcast, I'd never seen vampires done that way. And the rest of the movie, I get, like, it's very deadpan. It's very...
particularly the end gets a little strange.
Yeah, it gets arbitrary. It gets really abstract and elliptical. I get all that. Like, I totally see why this movie doesn't work for people. I think it's an experiential movie. I think it has... But I do think Almereyda is a very experimental filmmaker. So, for example, one of the things we're talking about is he shoots part of the movie. This is probably the premiere film ever shot with the Pixelvision cameras. Now, the Pixelvision cameras are these Fisher-Price... Chris was saying, these Fisher-Price cameras they made for kids, and they shot on an audio cassette. They made them for like only a year in like 89.
This was in the 80s,
yeah, 89 or 90. And they really only made them for like a year. They're supposed to be... And they didn't really take off. But filmmakers discovered them because they realized they could buy a video camera that recorded on a freaking audio cassette and make a movie with them. And... Almereyda was very struck by that because he'd watched a movie at Sundance that was totally shot in Pixelvision because that's what the filmmaker could afford. And he began.
And Pixelvision has a very specific look.
It is. It's very weird. It nothing looks like it's very. It looks like
it's 4-bit almost. Not
yeah.
even 8-bit.
No, I mean, honestly,
and it's black and white.
It's black and white. And honestly, I own a Pixelvision camera. I wanted one, and I do have one. I have one with the tape and everything. And this guy restores them, who I bought it from. And it is, if you know anything about film, it is so low resolution. I mean, it's low resolution for like the 80s. And you blow it up to a film size, it doesn't, it's just a very weird look. Part of the movie is shot this way. But what you start to think is at first it's sort of vampire vision, and it's not. It's just certain scenes he just chose to shoot in with that particular camera.
I felt every scene I wanted to see more detail in, he went the opposite.
Right.
Every scene where I was like, oh, it's going to get sexy, or oh, it's going to get violent, or oh, it's going to get dangerous, or oh, someone's... Every scene that I wanted more detail, he said, fuck you,
right,
and put it in Pixelvision.
And I think
every scene.
That's what Almereyda is as a filmmaker.
Which I thought was cool.
Right. He's an experimental filmmaker. His latest film is Experimenter. It's on Netflix, so you guys check it out. Again, a weird... kind of, he plays with things. And so, not for everybody. I really do get the hate. It's done in this... the lead actress's name is Galaxy Craze. I don't know how much 90s pretentious...
Lucy was...
Well,
Galaxy.
I know, but the actress is her real name.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say Nadja is the lead actress.
But you know what's really interesting? I was going to say, anytime an actor has a brilliant fucking scene, like Martin Donovan's got a scene when he's telling Lucy how much he loves her.
Yeah.
And it's well acted. And as soon as the acting starts getting really good, she just grabs him and throws him across the bar.
Yeah.
Right.
And goes like, and I love that he was aware of, like, we're not making that movie, motherfucker.
Right.
Let's go back into what we're doing. And I think I wrote you a text. It's like Tommy Wiseau's Dracula.
Yeah, that's actually perfect description.
I mean, I think it's probably more skillful than that. And
For sure, but it's intentionally the room.
Yeah. If you're a fan
Hey,
of...
Mark, I was born in a castle.
Right. I mean, Elena Lowenstein...
That needs to be made.
Well, Elena Lowenstein, who plays Nadja, the title character, is a really great actress. And but she is a very Hal Hartley... She's in a ton of Hal Hartley... I think they actually had a relationship.
And in Seinfeld.
She was in Seinfeld.
She's in Seinfeld.
Right. And in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Did she the one who ate peas one at a time?
No, she is the one who is the gymnast.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Anyways, I won't ramble on. This is not a film for everyone, obviously. But I think if you're a filmmaker, and I think if you're a Hal Hartley fan, which are getting to be less and less these days, I think he's kind of a forgotten film figure. This is a movie worth seeking out, and it's hard to find too. It's not an easy movie to
It's
get a hold
actually
of.
on YouTube. You can find it for free on YouTube.
Is it a decent?
It's decent.
Yeah, it's
I actually went and bought a copy of it because I thought the quality was messed up because it was the Pixelvision. Because I was like, I can't see what's going on now. Blurs of light are going by in 4-bit squares, and what the hell's
And
happening?
instead, it was pure art, man.
Yeah, it was art, not a fuck up.
I just want to say, if you're really into highbrow horror films, this film is definitely for you. And I also would like to recommend Murder Party, which is one of my favorite
from the
highbrow
director of
horror
Green
films.
Room.
And also, I actually quite enjoyed The Love Witch, which was also sort of a highbrow satire horror film.
And if you're interested in Almereyda's stuff, like Phil said, his 2000 Hamlet, also starring our boy Ethan Hawke, is very much in the same vein as this. It has a lot of really interesting ideas about Hamlet and Shakespeare.
And modernizing
and one of my favorite, I guess now it's kind of dated, but he does the To Be or Not to Be scene within the action section of Blockbuster Video, which is really funny if you get the highbrow joke there. And he did, after this, he did a mummy movie, which does not follow Chris's rule of being wrapped in bandages, but does have an incredible performance
But does he have a
by
sharp
Christopher
fingernail that he
Walken.
kills people with?
Yeah,
Because
does
that'd
he
be
have-
okay.
Huh? Does he have a
Thumbs
thumb?
up.
There's no
Thumbs
thumb
up.
pricking, but there is Jared Harris in a really cool performance. I'm trying to remember the main actress's name.
Allison something.
Who was in the
Allison
Underneath.
Elliott.
Allison Elliott, who was in the Underneath, and
It's a
really
true-
amazing performance by Christopher Walken, and a weird take on the Mummy.
Yeah, it's a druid mummy.
What's the name of that movie?
The Eternal, I think, is
yeah.
the name of it.
1998.
I think our mummy episode.
It has several different.
If you don't like Nadja, I'm not sure you'll
But
like
it
that.
has a Red Shoe Diaries cover. I don't know, man.
It's a strange
victim of its
90s artifact, but it's worth
Not a lot of
seeking out.
Pixelvision.
Again, if you like Nadja.
All right, let's go on to our next choice, which is Patient's choice.
Oh, shit.
Which is Guillermo del Toro's, I believe it was his first movie, wasn't
Yeah.
Yes, his first feature.
it? Kronos.
Yeah,
Well,
which Phil is also going to get mad at me for.
No. You're just lucky I'm
It's
Mexican.
not
on this one. He get a pass because it's Mexican.
What's it about?
Cronos is about a, I guess he's an antique dealer and his granddaughter, and he finds a statue which has the Cronos inside of it, which the Cronos is like an alchemist type machine that has like a bug in it that if you put it on your body, it recycles your blood and makes you immortal, but it also turns you into a vampire-ish.
See, I'm passing on the script from a producer already. Just that's it. I'm passing. Too many things happening.
Didn't sell it
Not
for
vampire.
you. And so it's his
You'll never get to
battle-
direct Pacific Rim.
I know. The
Sorry,
main
keep
character's name is Gris, and it's his battle with this factory owner, LaGuardia. LaGuardia's been looking for this same statue, the Cronos, because I don't know if he's a hypochondriac or if he's just terminally ill. He's dying, and so he's been looking for the Cronos for like 40 fucking years or some shit.
Haven't we all?
And, Ron Perlman, his nephew, who...
By law, has to be in Del Toro.
it's a Del Toro film, so of course Ron Perlman's in it. So Ron Perlman is kind of like his nephew, but also his like hired hand, I guess you could say.
His bruiser.
Yeah. His bodyguard type character, and so it's basically their sort of power play over this Cronos.
Is that what the
Device.
movie's about?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like LaGuardia wants it. Gris is kind of addicted to it. He's not giving it up. I'm giving a very simplistic.
And Ron Perlman wants a nose job.
Dude, Ron Perlman I'm sorry. I love Ron Perlman, of course I do. But his acting in this is fucking terrible.
Really?
He's kind of over
I
the
just
top.
thought
It's fun.
he was so bad.
Oh no, he's one of the stronger
Oh,
parts of the
I
movie.
totally agree with it. Wow, he was one of my favorite parts of this movie.
Really? I absolutely love like this movie. It's such a strong visual movie. Like I was reading the director's notes because the Criterion Collection, and I was reading the director's notes, and just the way that Del Toro breaks down every scene's color and his vision for every single scene is just so. It's such a
It kind of felt to
visually
me.
pretty movie.
It felt to me they're just kind of giving out Criterion collections, like based on like you're like yes, Pan's Labyrinth, fucking genius,
Yeah.
and other work
Still
he's
Del
done.
Toro's best film.
Yes, for sure. Like he's done great films. but-
Devil's Backbone's
Devil's
fucking
Backbone's
amazing.
Devil's
Right.
Backbones are my second
What
favorite.
would you
by
say?
him.
You'd say Hellboy.
Would you say
Oh, you
Hellboy?
couldn't.
I'm
I
going
gotta
to
think
say
about this
Blade
for a second,
2.
but
Blade
I'm
2
not a
is
big
probably my
Devil's
favorite.
Backbone
I'm just
like it.
kidding.
Well,
I
I'm
love
joking.
Blade too, so suck it.
This movie to me is kind of a mess. It kind of jumps around a lot. It's got cool art direction. To me, it kind of falls into Del Toro's thing where it's like, elements as far as props and set design overtook story and content and pacing.
Yeah.
And it jumps around like fucking crazy. And 1 minute, one thing's happened. Next minute, they're in another location. Then it's like he's
It's like
dead and
literally
being
only
buried.
3 locations in the
He's
entire
dead
film.
and being buried, and it feels like a week's gone by, and then it cuts to like the boss buzzing Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman's still in his tux he killed the guy in.
That I'll give
Like
you.
it feels like a week's gone by, and it's like it's the same night. I don't know what the pacing is, what the timing is, but I enjoy the movie. I love Del Toro. I love what he was trying to do. I have no idea what the Cronos device is or what the bug was inside the fucking thing. I don't have any idea how it actually works or functions. I don't understand the rules. Is he a vampire? Is he not?
Well,
Which seems to be a key thing for Phil.
they don't
Well,
have
it's a
kids.
vampire podcast.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he's not a vampire. He's just like, hey, you know what? You can maybe like this blood or not like this blood. Or
I don't know. Once again, you drink blood and you're immortal. It's vampire. End
It
of
is
story.
not.
I'm sorry. Those are my rules.
If you just drink blood and
For
you're
me.
immortal.
It's his
For me.
rules and it's his podcast.
No, it's not. It's our podcast, 1,000%. I just meant for me personally in a movie, those are the two things that make you a vampire. Everything else
Drink
other than
blood
that
and
can
immortal.
be-
I am
can
with
be
Chris, and that's
float
not
around.
just because
Bram
he's the
Stoker's
boss.
rolling over in his grave right now.
Man, Bram Stoker would roll over his grave from Nosferatu. but, you know.
Yeah.
So, Chris, your take on it?
I kind of come down between Phil and Patience. I do think that this is for this is definitely Del Toro's weirdest film. It's his most all over the place movie, but it's also you can see
Which is
why,
saying a lot.
You can also see why Del Toro is Del Toro. It's so colorful and gorgeous, and there's so much intricacy to the props that he designs, like the antique thing itself, the watch and the
It's
spider and everything.
beautifully
It's just
crafted.
gorgeous.
Yes.
Obviously, an enormous amount of thought has gone into this stuff. It's just a beautiful looking film. It's consistently surprising, but I thought there's always a separation between the audience and the characters where nobody ever really seems real on this.
Yes.
It all feels like you're watching, in a lot of Del Toro, you're watching,
Yeah.
you never get to see Peter Falk telling this story to the kid in bed, but that's essentially what's happening here. This is a myth. This isn't really what happened. This is just somebody's fable, and I had a hard time connecting with it, perhaps, on some level. because
There's a scene that I want to talk about specifically where Federico Lupi is licking blood off the bathroom floor, and it is just such a creepy and masterful scene. He does it in such a loving, disgusting way that I was blown away just from that one single scene. I was like, that's how good of a director Del Toro is. But even his first movie, and how good of an actor Federico Lupi is, because he went on to do a lot of great movies.
It's rare to see a bad performance in a Del Toro movie.
That's true.
But that scene was mind-blowing.
I'm curious because I don't know that we discussed this for the podcast prior.
Although we have discussed Cronos.
we talked, because you
before.
just watched it even before
I
the
just
podcast.
tried to rewatch it recently. It's interesting with Cronos. I do think if you're a big Del Toro fan, I don't know that you could go back to Cronos and really see the director that he's going to become. In the way that you can watch, say, Mean Streets or something and see what Scorsese's going to come. I agree. It's interesting. It has those elements that you guys are talking about. The attention to detail, the interest in the macabre, the focus on these really interesting props and ideas. But
the mythiness of it.
the mythiness of it. But I think Cronos is one of those movies that every time I've gone back to watch it, it's never the movie I want it to be. I want it to be this other vampire movie or this interesting Del Toro movie along the lines of what he's done since. And I think Del Toro's reputation is obviously earned. He really is great with monsters. He has all these amazing ideas. He has this amazing visual sense. But this movie, for me, it never comes together the way that I want it to. It's interesting. He has the little kid and the older sort of father figure, and that seems to come up again in Mimic.
Yeah, it's like a Mimic, yeah.
And
Underrated movie, by the way.
So underrated.
Okay, I'm glad we all agree because I was just about to say Mimic to me
is more what you hope this one is.
Exactly, and I have always loved Mimic, and so. I feel like if you're going to go back and watch this movie, you might as well just go back and watch Mimic. I don't know. It falls short for me as far as a Del Toro movie, a vampire movie, and even to a certain extent of an art house film.
As a side note, I would just like to point out that one of my greatest life disappointments is that every time someone says myth, or I say myth, I want someone to say what? So I can go, myth, and they can say yeth, but it never has happened even once.
Well, now it's on the air, so now it's for
and there's a reason that hasn't happened.
It's a big disappointment, Russell.
There's
Chris
this
is
one,
getting real with y'all, man.
There's this one point at the end of the film, near the end of the film, where his skin is sort of deteriorating, and I thought that was classic Del Toro. Like, you could really see where he's going to go in the future in his filmmaking.
I agree with you.
It's
In
monstrous.
retrospect, it is. You can see that. I don't think seeing this movie when it came out in 92 or 93 or whatever, I don't think I would have seen the filmmaker that Del Toro would become.
All fair points.
And
Absolutely.
you see the growth too between Del Toro and Guillermo Navarro as DP.
Yeah.
Like, because we're like, you watch this and Navarro, I feel like he overlit every damn scene. Then you watch as he grows and you go, shit, this guy's one of the best DPs in the world.
Yeah.
Like, you watch, Pan's Labyrinth and you go, this is a different team. Like, they grew and you can see the quality they can produce now.
I mean, they're obviously very talented. They're up to something. It's definitely a debut film. I'm a Del Toro fan, and I really do admire probably something about every single one of his movies. In fact, I think our last trip to LA, they had an exhibit on Del Toro at the LACMA, and we went out of our way to go.
Badass.
Yeah.
You're doing something right if you have an exhibit on your movies and you're
Right.
still making movies.
Yeah, and I mean,
His
it was
director's
funny
notes are
because
amazing.
throughout the exhibit, they had these montages of his movies edited together, and they were jaw-dropping in a way that, I mean, like, when I watch his movies, I don't even think I notice how much thought and care with the colors and the design, and I know he's like this really meticulous, inventive, specific filmmaker, but seeing it like put together, like multiple movies over time, is really stunning. And it does start with this movie. I'm probably going to default to Phil and Russ on this, in the sense that this movie is, I think, really mainly worth recommending for the visuals, and probably if you're a Del Toro fan as a sort of completist. I don't get a lot out of it story-wise. I don't totally get it. It is an interesting vampire movie in the sense that he has a take on vampires. But then when you watch it, I'm not sure
Vampire adjacent.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like vampire by default. Like, well,
Right.
he's drinking blood, must be vampire.
And immortal.
I mean,
we don't know if he's immortal. We don't know.
Well, he turns into Nosferatu type.
No, he's like got marbles against the bathroom floor. He's licking the blood off.
Is Martin a vampire film?
Is it?
Is Martin a vampire film?
Martin.
George Romero's Martin?
I don't know. I think no. I've ever
Oh,
seen
yeah,
that
you
movie.
should watch that.
Oh, wow.
Why was
That's
that not
a-
on our list?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
Or Vampire's Kiss.
I hate that movie.
Really? Oh,
But is it a vampire movie?
I've never seen
I think
it.
It
it's more
says
like-
Vampire's Kiss.
It's
I don't
more
know.
like
It's not a
I'm
vampire.
going crazy movie.
I'm doing a movie called Immortal Cannibal.
I think you guys all make valid points.
Did you just make that up?
No,
I did.
And this is a movie in the way that, like,
love it.
Russ and I are drawn to something like Nadja.
Yeah.
I can see how this movie just affects you, and it is a very unusual film. It's a somewhat emotional film, as I think most of Del Toro's work is. I am drawn in by the characters, usually in
And the
their
granddaughter.
right. And I
Who
think
has
that-
no dialogue
Well, she says one word.
at the end.
I mean, that's another interesting Del Toro affectation, but an unusual film to be sure. Not unique, interesting. I don't know that I would recommend it to I think I would
It's
recommend
not for everyone.
Yeah, it's
Just like Nadja is not for
Yeah.
everyone. This
Whoa,
is
those are
not
two
for
different
everyone.
not for everyone's, though.
yeah.
Just like Life Force is not for everyone.
Yeah.
Life Force is for everyone.
If you like
Sorry.
breasts, Life Force is for you.
Enjoy this. All right,
Yeah,
what's
for
next?
sure.
Let's move on.
All right, let's
Moving
move on
on.
to Philip's choice, which is A Girl Who Walks
Oh my God.
Shit, here it comes.
This is controversial for a couple different reasons, most of which is that from Patience and I, because we just saw
The
Anna
Bad
Lily
Batch.
Emapour's second film, The Bad Batch, which is probably the worst film we're going to see this year.
Literally,
Wow.
it's
bad.
Whoa,
without
that's
a
a
doubt.
throwdown.
That is
Without
like
a doubt.
Knives Out, like
It's
No,
bad.
they're seriously. I will watch
I turned down the
Resident
invite.
Evil 7 again to not watch Bad Batch.
Yeah,
That's
we
how much
invited-
I
Let me
fucking
ask you
hated
this:
this movie.
Nadja, the Bad Batch.
I will watch Nadja
Nadja?
all day, every day.
No, I feel
All three of you did not like it,
we
and
got-
so I'm terrified that we're gonna love it.
we got invited to.
Like,
Well, that would
like
be.
Rose and I are gonna go see it and be like, "It was fucking great."
It
What are
was-
y'all
wow,
talking
I don't know
about?
what y'all are
That
saying.
was
That
brilliant.
sounds
It was
par
a
for
film
the
of
course.
ideas.
That's probably
Like,
exactly what's going to happen.
But Philip saw it before we did, and we're like, "Oh, there's invite the Alamo. There's gonna be free barbecue, and there's gonna be stunts. This
The
big
barbecue
event."
was great.
And he's like, "No, I saw that movie. And you couldn't pay me
he
to
wouldn't
be
go.
there."
That,
Right.
I mean, free barbecue and beer, and Phil would not go.
And yet, this was Phil's
And
pick.
he still chose this
for
shitty
That was
fucking
perplexing.
movie.
Okay, real quick. We're not talking about Bad Batch. We're talking about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Fair.
Which was just as terrible.
It was not.
I hate this.
All right, wait.
so
We're getting
much.
our reviews all mixed together.
All right, get the plot.
Phil,
So the
what's this
Bad
movie
Batch is about Jason Momoa and hold on.
There's like a town of cannibals, and then there's a town of candy
Let me ask
kids.
you all this real quick. I know this is a diversion, but real quick, is it worth seeing? Like, will Russ and I be like,
The Bad Batch.
You guys are gonna fucking love it.
No.
You guys will love it.
Honestly, it's been so
Did you like
universally
this movie?
reviled.
I did.
doubt
You'll
it.
like it. You'll like it.
No, it's been so universally reviled from all different corners.
No,
I seriously doubt you're going to.
It did not.
It's
do
one
well.
of those films they try to force down your throat with like, here's a few positive reviews, and it's just not.
Gotta go. Okay. Anyways,
So A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's an Iranian, Persian,
Although filmed in Texas.
filmed in Texas,
filmed in California.
Oh, California.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's a vampire film shot in California with, it's a spaghetti western vampire movie set in the Middle East but shot in California on a very small budget. And
What's it about?
it's about a kid who takes care of his father, and his father has a heroin addiction, and his father owes some money to a drug dealer, and the kid's pretty much trying to make good on what he owes this drug dealer, and the drug dealer's killed by this vampire girl, and as he's trying to make good on it, he crosses paths with this vampire woman, and they kind of have a relationship, and they, an awkward one, and they fall in love, kind of, and I guess the big twist is he kind of finds out that maybe she has something to do with his father dying later, and that's kind
then
of
has to decide whether he cares that much.
yeah, because but it was just to me, it was a well-made movie about emotion and atmosphere, and it never really drug. It wasn't a long movie. It was shot well, had cool score choices and musical cues, and I thought I'd never seen anything like it before. And for that, it just never bored me, and I thought it was a really interesting take. And, and it started somebody's career, which you guys didn't like their second
Not so
film.
good. You didn't like it.
I said, we, yeah.
If only
Holy
we could have
shit.
stopped her then.
I spent this whole time looking at Patience's face as Phil gave his synopsis.
I was just looking at my notes, and my last note is, I'd rather watch Nadja. I swear, I can't make this
how
up.
big of a
Hey, go Nadja.
but also
Go Life Force.
But also, do you feel Nadja's influence on this? Because I am certain that she watched Nadja and it influenced this film.
You just keep saying that, and I don't see it.
The thing is
the deadpan, black and white, 80s?
But it's a different type of deadpan. I mean, this is not really...
Yeah, but-
Nadja
yeah, but-
is deadpan.
You're saying Nadja wasn't... I can't believe
I follow
you
this
said
chick on
it.
Twitter. That's the kind of stuff she would
Nadja
watch.
is deadpan in a deeply intentionally ironic way. I don't think they're trying to be
This
ironic
is not
here.
smart.
There is a
This is not as smart as
black and
Nadja
white
was.
aspect to this film. It's impossible to deny.
Nadja was smart. This is just her fucking taking hallucinogens.
Okay, so tell us what you think.
This is just her taking hallucinogens. Okay, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure if I would be able to have this insight into this film if I had not seen The Bad Batch. But this chick does a lot of acid, and she said so in her director Q&A. And Bad Batch is legitimately about ecstasy. There is a whole
Would you feel
part
differently
of the film.
about this film without seeing
That's what I was going to say. Like, you're letting something...
Well,
I'm all
but-
objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Well, I mean,
whatever's a whole bunch of things.
Needing a witness.
I mean, we base a lot of our opinions on if we like a particular director or not.
fair.
We have our
that's
favorites.
inevitable.
We
Right.
know
So you-
Russ has a hard on for John Carpenter. That's who
Fuck
we
that.
are.
So real quick, you saw Bad Batch before you saw
I
this.
saw Bad Batch. I saw this last night.
See, I saw it the other way, and so when I saw Bad Batch, I'm like, well, fuck it. We all have a, we all don't make things that are the best sometimes. You got to give them a shot.
And filmmakers,
Every filmmaker has its style.
And she worked for something.
John Carpenter made Ghosts of Mars, so
Yeah,
not
she-
everybody makes great
fucking
movies.
killed it on Ghost of Mars.
Hey, sometimes you swing for the fences and you strike out, but you fucking try.
Sometimes you swing for the fences and you make Ghosts of Mars.
Her style is all over this. There's the long pauses, which I fucking hated about Bad Batch, and I hate about this film too, where she's just they're just staring at each other. And that's all I do for a good minute.
Normally that's the sort of thing, if it's a good movie and I'm feeling something for these characters, or I'm getting what
Right,
they're actually
yeah.
talking about, I don't
Right.
mind that at all. Here, there's no emotional connection to me with any of this. And I kept going, oh, for fuck's sakes, you think this is so much more important than it is. Let's move this along. You made a genre film, you know. You just don't want to admit you made a genre film at the same time. No, this is bigger
Did you feel
than
that about the movie? That it was a film that would not admit it was a genre movie?
I felt like it was acting as if it was more important than it was. I'm
Thank you.
everybody talking about how like this is this great movie, and I'm like, what is it that you're seeing? That what am I missing? Is there a bigger metaphor that I'm totally lost on
So
me?
you did not like the movie, or you
I
did like
thought
the
it was just kind of okay. I thought I'll tell you, the one thing that really struck me here is I love the idea of her, and I can't remember what it's called, the headdress thing that she's wearing.
Hijab.
That being basically a vampire cape, the way they use it. I was like, that was pretty clever. I was like, that's
Except
never
she
would
wears
have
the
occurred
same
to me.
clothes the whole entire
I
time.
like that.
And I think she's actually a really good actress. She's definitely, she has that odd gorgeous, this offbeat, like
She's
super attractive.
tremendous in every way.
I'm sorry for texting you at 3:00 in the morning, Phil.
Only the stomach fellas were
With
awake.
hate, I know, right?
But wait, so
You hated this worse than Nadja.
I did. I actually hated
Yes!
this film with
Like when Russ wins again, that is all that matters.
but everybody liked Life Force, so I win.
Yay!
Life Force was awesome.
God, what blows my mind was just
wait. Because
I would like to
Let the
say,
songs.
I watched this movie a while ago. I was not a huge fan of the movie. I've definitely heard all the hype about it. This is what I'm going to say. For me personally, my experience about the movie was, if you told me there was an Iranian movie about a female vampire set in the, I guess it's the 80s, right?
I don't even know.
That was in black and white. I would be super excited. This is not that movie. This is not
that movie.
I mean,
But not the one to get excited about.
I agree with
is
you,
what he said.
and that's what I'm saying is this is not the movie I hoped it would be. I feel that there was a little bit of overrating as far as what this movie was. I think people projected something on this movie. It's not a bad movie. I'm with Rob. I certainly saw a Nadja influence. Maybe it's just because I'm a big Nadja fan. There was one scene in particular that when my brother finally watched the movie, he kept coming back to, and he said, I love that scene so much. It was really great. And I said, I know. It's basically the only scene that I really remember from the movie that really struck me. I don't think it's a movie not worth seeing, particularly if you're a horror fan or a vampire fan. I think it's worth checking out. No?
go ahead, finish.
But
He's all.
I gotta feel my boy Rob.
Rob
This gun, Rob is inside the
Rob
actor's
is
studio.
like, got
Thinking about it.
he's so.
He's got the Lipton van.
I don't know that I agree with. But I don't agree
We
with.
discussed this movie a lot.
But I don't agree with Chris and Patience in the sense that I do think that this is an interesting movie. I understand they obviously had problems with the movie she's made after this, which I have not seen, so I can't say. So I do think there are some problems with this movie. I think it rambles. I think it doesn't totally add up to much.
Musical interludes.
There were musical interludes, but and I didn't find it a particularly memorable movie. But I didn't think it was. It was not a movie that I watched and was like mad at and felt like I shouldn't have watched this movie. I'm glad I saw it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Phil. So I felt.
He's like, I win.
No, but I actually am very grateful that we had this on the list. Russ had sort of a mixed experience with it. He's like, I didn't, because when we read about it, I was like, oh man, it's like about a skateboarding Iranian vampire. Like, I'm in.
Yeah, why
That's
would
it,
you
black
not
and
wanna
white?
see
Like
it?
that
Yeah.
is so up our alley. And then,
I love you guys so much.
but Russ had seen it and said, man, it's kind of just okay.
It's not that movie.
I didn't. Yeah, he's like, it's not Nadja, and that's really what he said. He said it's not like that. It's not this sort of like deconstruction, but also kind of funny deadpan movie. It's not the movie you think it's going to be. Anyways, so Phil put it on the list, and I was like, well, I'm going to watch it anyway. So I, on the other hand, the first 20 minutes of the movie, I struggled with a little bit. Honestly, it kind of would be neat to see this movie knowing nothing about it. Because the first 20 minutes is this very... who directed Taste the Cherries? Abbas Kiarostami? Is that... No one knows what I'm talking about?
Wow, nerd.
Okay, so Yeah, that's right. Beat it, nerd. So Abbas Kiarostami made this, like, I think he's Iranian. I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth. But anyways, he's this big Criterion type filmmaker, and he makes stuff about, you know, this kind of shit, and more sort of arty films, and that's what this felt like, where there's like this, you know, guy, and he's addicted to heroin, he has a son who's trying to take care of him, and then, you know, there's this drug dealer, and he shows up, and he's all dressed kind of hip-hop, and it's all in black and white, and I was like, what is this? And then the vampire shows up, and it's shot in this kind of amazing way, where the vampire is like you know, through this window, he sees her through the car window, and I was like, what's happening? Like, what? Okay, the movie has changed, and the vampire was, to me, a really neat creation. She was this, you know, sort of young girl who's also into like 80s music and has like Madonna on her wall posters, but she's also this terrifying creature of darkness. And there is, and I have to admit, you guys would have to admit this as well, there's a scene where she terrorizes a young boy and really vamps out and says, like, you know, I'm going to find you if you're not a good boy. And it's shot in broad daylight, in black and white, but in broad daylight, and it's really terrific. Like, I remember thinking, like, I love this scene. And there's another scene later where it's played very metaphorically, very art housey, but where they pierce her ears. Probably it drove patients nuts, but they pierce her ears, and she vamps out a little bit as her pseudo boyfriend kind of pierces her ears, and her fangs come out and stuff. And it was a really, really terrific, unusual scene. And as Russ was saying, there's one scene where when she meets the guy, the sort of, I guess, pseudo-protagonist or James Dean protagonist in the film, they play this song, and they almost play it in its entirety as the two sort of find each other in this room. And it was so striking and unusual and emotional, and it may have just been the music. I don't want to give every credit to the filmmaker. I think that the song is badass. It's a great music cue. It's filmed really well. And those things elevated the movie for me. It is slow. It is filled with kind of a little pretentious. I could see that argument, but it's an unusual movie, and I really responded to it. And I thought about it a lot after I watched it. And I do think the black and white, the cinematography. If you're a cinematographer or you're an aspiring filmmaker, you probably should see this film no matter what, even if you don't like it story wise. It's a really well shot film as a filmmaker, and it represents, she has very specific compositions, and I haven't seen The Bad Batch yet, but I can see those compositions in The Bad Batch as well. And
you
it
keep
shows
saying yet, and it makes me nervous.
I know. I'm
you're going to waste
scared.
2 hours of your life watching it. But go ahead.
I would like to preface, I would just want to say that my review is based on A, I was pretty drunk when I watched this last night.
fair.
And B, I was definitely like polluted with how much I hated the Bad Batch going into
No, you would not be on my jury if I was gonna...
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely
Russ
biased.
watched it sober and paid attention. You probably looked at his phone.
I did too. I was sober.
You were sober, but you also hated the Bad Batch, though.
Yeah, true.
I've watched it 3 times. That's how much I like it.
Oh my god, Phil.
Do you know why? Because it's got...
Too brute.
No. It's got a coolness factor to it that you can't quantify. It's got this thing to it that you go, man, she made this for fucking nothing. With black and white, and made an entire community that she fucking made up. And there's a coolness to what she did with nothing. I respect the fuck out of it.
I also don't disagree with that.
There is a
as well.
coolness to this movie that I did feel.
It's a Jarmusch feel to me. It's got a very Jarmusch feel.
I can
but
see that
Jarmusch is one of those directors, and I do agree. I think that she was much more copying from Jarmusch than she was from Nadja or something like that. I mean, it definitely feels like that, but Jarmusch is a director that to me is like David Lynch in the sense that, like, lots of people try to do movies like them. Nobody does it like them, and it's almost impossible to put your finger on exactly why it works for them, and it doesn't work for other people.
I felt it was that's a good point. Although I'm with Phil. The movie just worked for me. I responded to it more. So
I do agree that there are. This has a collection of cool moments. Like we didn't bring up the point when she has her first sort of meet cute with the main character who's coming from a party and he's all X'd out and he's dressed up like Dracula. And she's bemused, I guess would be the best way to describe it. She doesn't look... She's like trying to decide what she wants to do.
And she pulls him on her skateboard. Like, I mean, it's a neat sequence.
It's like, okay, that's a strong moment. There's a couple of the moment with her and the kid where you're like, okay, well, that's an interesting thing about her. But she's the only character I'm interested in this film. Even he is like, I just don't care about.
Okay, that's very agreeable. It was the structure of the film is weird, and I didn't necessarily love it. I think what I love about this movie is probably the moments more than the the whole.
Yeah.
It is not a narrative-driven film. Although, it does, kind of in a twisty, sort of understated way, bring narrative threads together in a pretty clever way. It's almost like a Coen Brothers film.
Yeah.
Somewhat blood simply. So, I don't know. Not for everybody.
Let's go to the final film we're going to talk about, and this was my final choice, which is the most recent film. I guess Girl Walks Home Alone. That's most recent, but second most recent, which is Afflicted. Now, I was scared to put this on the list altogether because you directors in the house have already let me know that you've decided that no film that's found footage is good by definition.
Bad. But I love found footage.
I strongly disagree with.
I do.
You're like, pixelated cameras are fine.
Yeah,
but fuck found footage.
But not as found footage. If you shoot the movie with angles,
I would argue there are quite a number of good found
Chris
footage
and I
movies,
agree.
but
I asked them on the last one, and we agreed on a few.
Pixel Vision found footage is coming next.
It's the next big thing.
A Pixel Vision, found footage, caveman film.
But Afflicted was another film that I was split on whether or not to put it on here as well, because it's only partially a horror film. It actually has a lot more in common with the movie Chronicle, which is another found footage movie about a bunch of teenagers that end up find this thing, and one of them gets superpowers, or two of them get superpowers. And this is a lot more similar to that for the first half to almost 3/4 of it. Mm-hmm. The idea here in this film, written and directed by real-life childhood friends Derek Lee and Cliff Prowse, who there's scenes in here where they're playing childhood friends who've been directing since they were kids. There's actually scenes of them, movies they made in high school, and those are the actual movies they made in high school together, like martial arts movies and such. But they've decided they're going to travel all over the world together to film a web series called Ends of the Earth, and it turns out for Derek character, Derek Lee, it's his last wish. He has a disease which could really kill him at any time. Mm-hmm. And they're going out and they're partying. They meet up with some friends in Paris. And while they're there, their whole thing is, we got to get Derek laid. We got to get Derek laid. He's never been particularly good with ladies, but we're going to make sure it happens. And he meets a hot raven-haired chick, and they presumably hook up, but they go up to the room, and they find him lying there all bleeding and unconscious. They're like, what the fuck, dude? Come on, man. What do we got to do? Pay a hooker? It's like, you can't even get laid right. Jesus Christ. But, of course, what turns out that she was no average hookup at a bar, but she was, in fact, a vampire and has bit him. And as we watch the rest of the movie, we start seeing them chronicle as Derek, they don't understand his vampirism at first. They just know he's super strong, and he can run inhumanly fast, and he can jump really high. But then, as it starts to become clear, when he starts getting pale and his veins are showing up and he starts losing consciousness, that, oh, fuck, he needs blood. And there ain't no synthetic blood going to cut it, or animal blood. There's only one kind of blood that will. As we follow them through these adventures that go on here, I'll just say, I found this one of the most fun movies I saw this year when it came out. I thought this was just terrifically entertaining. It's definitely in probably my top 5 found footage films ever. It's so much fun. The only thing I don't like about it is that when it's over, there's no sequel I can immediately put in and watch.
So sad. I love this film. I actually have friends who hate all horror films, and they like this film. I don't know.
Your husband?
Yes, my husband in particular. He was riveted when we watched this, and he was just like, "Oh my god, this is such great." But he also liked Cronos, so whatever.
He told you like that. Right? He told you he liked Cronos.
This is the kind of film that when you're have a low budget and you want to have good special effects, a good storyline, good acting, they do everything right with this film, I think. They had a $300,000 budget, but it doesn't feel like they had a $300,000 budget. Now, granted, Dracula had a $300,000 budget in 1931.
Yeah. It wasn't found footage.
And I know, okay, so I'm getting so much glares from the filmmakers.
No, I'm just saying, your budget goes bye-bye when you have a huge
so much hate for the found footage genre, but I like found footage. It's actually one of my favorites, and now they all hate me.
I'm not going to go there. I don't have any feelings about a movie, whether or not it's found footage. I just want a good movie, and I think you can do one as found footage, or you can do one as not found footage.
Absolutely.
It's whether or not the movie is good.
Oh, Phil, so many opinions. But let me just say, my favorite...
He's going to snob out of it. He's got that filmmaker card ready to play.
He's already giving me the side eye.
He's like, pick a card, any card, as long as it's the filmmaker card that I'm going to smack down.
I need to do a shot of whiskey here first.
I know, do it. One of my favorite parts of this film is the discovery process, where where Derek is like learning how to be a vampire, I guess you could say, and they're talking about doing tests. Sorry, I got distracted by whiskey for a second.
I met you.
I didn't mean for that to be on air, but I got distracted by whiskey. But when Derek is learning how to be a vampire and they're doing the video tests and with his jumping, like you were mentioning before, or being in the sunlight or whatever. And I just want to give a shout out to Cliff, who is like the best friend anyone could ever have, because my husband watched this film with me and he was just like, dude, I would have left like 3 days ago. And I was like, really? You would have abandoned your best childhood friend because he turned into a vampire?
I think we've already established it's like, ooh, do me now. Do me. Make me, I want in.
And I'm super sad that these guys, this is their freshman effort, and I think it's an amazing freshman effort, and I feel like, why are you not making more movies?
Why haven't they made another one?
Or a sequel. Yeah, absolutely. And okay, now Phil's going to
go
opposite of everything I just said.
Drink your whiskey.
All right, we're cheersing, having some whiskey here.
So that you can get it out unafraid.
Oh, yeah, it burns good.
Just like Afflicted.
So... Needed a chaser there. All right, I'm back. So I wanted to start this off with, I fucking hate found footage movies. I hate them with a passion. Except for like 2 or 3. And now I'm going to say 4. I actually fucking loved this movie.
Oh boy. Did not see that coming.
I hated
we just got
found footage. I hate, and then but you know what? When you see it done right, you see it done right. To me, this felt like I was watching Catfish, like an actual real documentary, because they did it right. These 2 guys put the time in. They traveled with 7 guys, one of them being a stuntman, and makeup. Like they shot scenes where, like me as a filmmaker, I've actually already watched this movie 2 to 3 times just to rewatch how they pulled some of this shit off with no money. And you can see like where their edits are, and you're like, man, that's really well made.
Dude, there's that jump they do across a plaza that I'm just like, how the fuck did they do that?
The Interpol chase scene alone is like, they should teach that in film school. Be like, hey, you don't need a big budget. Look what these guys did. They're being chased by Interpol through like a plaza, and they jump out of like a 4-story window.
Yeah.
And there's a vampire suicide scene in here where I've never seen it in any vampire movie ever, and I go, that's really fucking good. And so I wanted to know, like, when they told me it was found footage at the bar, and the Summers were like, oh, we got a found footage one on here. I'm like, oh, fuck me. I don't want to watch. I actually really wound up liking it. As far as all the movies on the list go, I'd seen most of them, and this, to me, was my favorite watch on the list because I had no idea what I was in store for, and I enjoyed it and even recommended it to some of my friends. And so, yeah, I even told my buddy who's a producer, I'm like, dude, if you got some free time, you need to figure out what the fuck these guys are doing and give them some money because they're really talented.
Hell yeah.
They did this with nothing, and yes, there are flaws in their story, but when you see what they pulled off, it's like, fuck, I mean, that's talent. They're good.
And once again, it has a twist on the vampire idea, which is that
it's classic canon, though.
Yeah, it's classic canon, except the one twist being they literally can't die. They try. And I love there's a confrontation between he finally gets to confront her, and she's like, what the fuck, do you think I wouldn't have died if I could have, you asshole?
Yeah.
I was like, that was great.
And there's actually, if you watch the movie, stick around, there's an extra scene after the credits, which is fun.
Have to watch.
Yeah, mid-credit scene is important.
Only thing I didn't like was the vigilante aspect added at the end. I thought that was like, when does this become a fucking superhero movie?
Well, I mean, like I said, it felt like Chronicle the whole time anyway.
It didn't need that last scene.
But I mean, if you're a good person and you become a vampire, what kind of
the information he had felt far-fetched to me. Like, do you know this girl? I was like, fuck off.
That's always been my.
It was a little.
That's always been my take, though. If I was like vampire, I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to kill and eat people, but I would Dexter that shit. Yeah, exactly.
I get it, but at least, whatever. That was a whole other movie. The last bit.
It was a little heavy-handed. I'll give.
All right, moving
Summers?
on.
Yeah.
They liked it okay.
Their faces say it all.
Damn, I thought I was going to have a win.
I see what y'all are saying. I think the effects in the movie were really good. I think the two guys that made it are pretty talented. I don't think that it transcended what I dislike about the found footage genre, which is, so it's behind the eight ball to begin with this kind of movie. I will say the first 15 or 20 minutes of the movie, I think they did a really good job with as far as found footage. They attempted to it's a small thing, but it was interesting. Most found footage movies, it's just like this footage has been cut together, but the footage, particularly at the beginning of the movie, was cut together more like a finished product that you would put up on your website and have.
It felt like an MTV show,
right? And I really enjoyed that, and I liked
like a vlog.
Yeah, and I liked the two leads. It had kind of a Casey Neistat feel to it. But at a certain point, it just became everything that I dislike about found footage movies. And of course, there is one moment where they have to give the excuse why they're going to keep filming the found footage, and I think I kind of just checked out at that point.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
But
I will say that is definitely something that sticks in almost everyone's craws who say, I don't like found footage movies. Honestly, there's a lot of movies. I'm glad I just finally went, I got to stop even worrying about that shit, because they're great movies as long as you don't worry.
No, there are so many bad ones though too.
No, there are more bad ones than
because they use it as an excuse to like make up for their lack of storytelling and filmmaking and budget, and they use it as a crutch. Whereas,
no, you're right.
The only reason I'm going to defend this one is A, the guy's dying, and B, you're a fucking vampire wanted by the police. You would keep filming.
Yeah.
What I am doing now by keeping filming is my evidence that what I'm doing, I'm not curing.
Which he literally does in the. He actually does it in the movie.
I agree.
No, he uploads the footage to YouTube.
You have
and he's
to.
interacting with people online.
I'm with the Summers Brothers on this. That's
movie
weak.
just doesn't totally work for me. I mean, like, I'm with Russ. Like, it started, and I really like the sort of YouTube, like, aspect of it. Like, I remember texting us and being like, it's pretty good. Like, I'm interested. Like, I was like, I'm not big on found footage, but I think they kind of found a way around it because they made it more feel like almost this YouTube take on it. And I'm with Phil that probably, and maybe this is just because of what we're interested in. The filmmaking is impressive in the sense that the special effects are pretty spectacular. Especially for a low budget, like it's very impressive.
And the editing and direction.
Yeah,
is really
it
good
is.
too.
It's really impressive. That, like you said, like there's a sequence where it's his POV and he escapes Interpol through the streets of they're in Italy. I think
some small town,
right?
They're
And
in,
it's pretty spectacular.
Cinque
It's
Terre.
really impressive. I was continually impressed by where they were, what they were doing with the cameras, the special effects they were pulling off. I mean, them testing his powers. It's very impressive, and I think it's strong filmmaking. From a story aspect, I just wasn't interested. It never really. It started to feel a little tedious. It started to feel a little forced.
And it definitely started to fall into the things that I loathe about found footage. And again, I think we talked about this on the last podcast. There's a weird unreality to found footage performances, and I felt that in several scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
That it
feels
just
a little
didn't feel
forced.
natural. And there was a lot of, the camera's on the side because we put the camera down, but we're doing this other thing, and
Yeah, but there are shots where he's flying off walls, killing police officers, goes into a door, you see him in the mirror, then he flies through a fucking wall attacking a police. And I was like, how the fuck do they make that happen?
And yes,
The
and you're
full
right.
barrel
And-
sequence? Oh my god, so bad.
Dude, like there's four edits that you don't even
But
see.
I am not emotionally invested in the movie because I just never buy into it. This movie would have.
I get you.
This movie would have, for me, would have really benefited from being a conventional film. I don't feel that the found footage aspect of it, outside of,
They had to though, budget wise, they had to.
I understand that, but at the same time, I would rather have seen. A more
And
conventional film.
as my brother said, if you are a fan of people throwing up,
Yes.
this is your movie.
There is
a lot of
There's a lot of vomiting.
is a plot point we come back to a lot. And
As well,
Sure.
if you are a fan of shaky cam following other people as they scream out that character's name behind them, this is your kind of movie.
that's
This
true.
is
I
definitely
mean,
your
that
movie.
makes a lot of sense. I think that one of the things that struck me as being the most brilliant was that these directors are also the main two actors, and they did a fantastic job.
And even their families in it.
They're basically
Yeah, I
playing
was so-
themselves
yeah.
if this happened to them.
I thought it was completely believable. One of the things that struck Carlos, who hates horror films was the scene where he's
How
sort
are you
of.
two married?
I know. Opposites attract, right?
They both drink a lot of booze.
That's right. We found our love of whiskey. But he loved the part where he's sort of like blacked out and then the guy is like putting his hands over him and he's like smelling his blood. Like that.
That's when he's
brilliant.
figuring out what's wrong with them. Is like
That's
he wants
a brilliant
blood.
scene.
You know,
We've never seen that in another vampire film.
Yeah. I know that they originally intended this to be a YouTube series.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, I wonder if that would have been more effective for me, just seeing it in bursts.
Yeah.
But as a feature, like, I'm so impressed with the filmmaking. I think these guys are smart. I think they're talented.
And I agree with you guys. I think I'm
I can see
surprised
why
they
other
haven't
people-
done a follow-up.
Right. And I could see other people enjoying this film. I didn't respond.
Yeah, it just wasn't our thing.
Well, I mean, it didn't do very well in the box office, and most of it was friends and family.
Very limited release.
It's very limited.
I don't think
Screens.
it got the release it probably should.
And which is too bad because I do think that, as you guys point out, there's an audience for this movie. And
this
it's too
is the
bad.
type of movie
With a bigger
full of unknowns that if it had the right studio that realized what they had their hands on and had pushed it, this could have been a chronicle for that.
I think this-
I think there is a
Devil
Blumhouse
Inside.
or something like that. This movie. There's another alternate reality where this movie makes. Maybe not $100 million, but a $70 million.
Makes, $70 million
the Oculus or
influences a
something
whole
like
wave
that.
of other
And these
directors.
guys get Mike Flanagan's kind of career or something like that.
Which is funny because it's not like Flanagan's had a movie that's fucking gone, gangbusters.
He
But
made
it's
a lot of
obvious
money
if
with
you watch
Ouija
his
2.
movies.
Ouija 2
Which Ouija
did
2 had a
really
$10 million
well.
marketing budget.
Yeah.
But
These
I think
guys had zero marketing. I hadn't even heard of this movie, and I
Very
watched
true.
TV all the fucking
But
time.
that's what I'm saying. If there was a smart studio picked this up, they would have seen what they had
They
their
went under
hands
the
on.
radar completely.
I
And
think
a
they could
smart
have made a lot of
studio
money.
would give another movie to these guys.
100%.
I agree with that. Even though I'm not a fan
I
of
don't
this
even
movie,
understand why they're not
I
making
agree with you
anything.
guys.
Yeah.
I would like to give a little quick final thoughts of the vampire genre as
That'd
a
be
whole.
great. Yeah, please.
Take us out, Patience.
I will. I actually am not a big fan of vampire movies.
They're not particularly
I am
scary.
super over it. Lost Boys and Dracula did everything I needed.
Yeah.
Interview with a Vampire as well did everything I needed for the vampire genre. But I'm really happy that we made this episode because I feel like it gave me a renewed interest in the vampire genre as a whole. Because I watched a lot of films I would have never seen otherwise.
Life Force.
Life Force
I
being
win!
one of them. But I think there's a lot of great vampire films out there if you just give them a chance. And I also think that I was reading an article the other day about how horror films give women a voice, and I think that specifically applies to our vampire films that we did today because there's a lot of them that are female driven. Nadja, I
Very
will
true.
give it that one.
Yeah.
Girl That Walks Home Alone at Night, Byzantium,
Yeah.
even Let the Right One In.
Yeah,
I feel
true.
like they're very female driven, and so that's always good for us female horror lovers to see us represented in horror films.
You're as big monsters as we thought you were.
Anybody else have an overall?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit, which is that horror, probably more than almost any genre, except for maybe sci-fi, is used for metaphor. It's used to talk about another idea. And vampires especially. I think that even as far as movie monsters go, the vampire is the metaphor. The idea of the life eternal, the blood sucking. That idea is present in probably every single movie that we've talked about. The vampire represents strongly another thematic idea, and so I think that they're sort of special, and I think that that's why we keep coming back to them. It's interesting. I almost feel as though. I think with the exception of maybe 30 Days a Night, these are not particularly scary movies. Maybe, I guess you could argue Afflicted or whatever.
They're sexy movies.
Right, they're sexy, they're cool. There's a lot of other things. They're action movies. They're more twists on horror than just straight up scary movies where people are getting knocked off one after the other or something like that. And I think that is what sort of elevates them and what keeps them fresh is because even something like Byzantium, which Phil was like, it's not a vampire movie, and we can say, oh, but it is, and you can have that debate, you can refresh that idea, and I think vampires especially are that creature in the horror genre. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I think the character itself kind of shows in the filming of it too. Mm-hmm. They're just beautifully shot movies for the most part.
Right. I think they attract directors of all kinds because they're so visually driven.
I will say, out of all the movie podcasts we've done, this was probably the most cinematic of the group. Like
That's
everything,
true.
at least
With
6 of the
with
films we
With
watched.
the exception of the Cronenbergs, I think.
Yeah.
Even Cronenberg got some that didn't look the best.
Yeah.
But still, this for the most part, we had 6 or 7 that were like, wow, that's a fucking
Beautiful
stunning movie.
films.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
amazing.
So, yeah.
I think what I find so fascinating about vampires is that we've all been fascinated by them for so long.
True.
I'm kind of like, what is it specifically about this movie monster that makes it the most enduring in all of human history? Like, I mean, the myths of the vampire go back as far as writing goes back. You know, people have been obsessed with this idea or variations on this idea for so long. And it keeps going across different cultures and situations. There's something about these concepts that just stick with us. And I think some of these movies we're talking about, like you can go everything from campy fun, like Life Force, to really dark and brutal, like 30 Days of Night, to more arty and thoughtful, like I guess I'll say Nadja.
Or Only Lovers Left Alive.
Or Only Lovers Left Alive. Like, there's so many different ways you can take the vampire and get something different out of that idea that is going to find its big group of people that's extremely appealing to, that I just say, why wouldn't you want to explore all the different facets of the vampire genre? I think he's still the most fascinating movie monster overall because of that. And so I give vampires 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Provided you use fangs, drink blood, stay out of the sunlight, and can do other things, you're a vampire.
Anyway,
To be continued.
we will be back in a future episode when our next topic is going to be the I guess not right to say lesser seen, but the lesser talked about perhaps Stephen King movies that we still think, or at least some of us think, are worth watching. Of which there will still be some debate probably before we completely agree on what those are. But anyway, we'll get that done as soon as we can. It's still, once again, a lot of movies to watch and track down.
Yeah.
For some of them. Anybody out there got a copy of the Night Flyer yet?
Yeah, seriously.
Anyway, thanks you guys. Thanks to all our listeners, and keep screaming, everybody.
Scream it.
Oneofus.net has been your one-stop shop for all things geek for years. But there's a side to them many of you have never heard. The subscription side. Subscribe and listen to great podcasts like The Breakfast Pub, The Original Gentleman, and the Watch a Movie With Us series. Head on over to oneofus.net and don't forget your towel.